Namo Furobosa, Namo Furobosa, Namo Furobosa.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to be with you all, as always. My name is Osho Brad with the Dragonfly Sangha, and I'm happy to be with you to celebrate the liturgy of the day and offer a brief Dharma talk. If you have our Book of Common Meditation, this will be the liturgy of the day C that will be following. So let us begin by sharing the peace. May all beings awaken to that peace which is our true home. Let us take refuge. I take refuge in the ground of being within which I live and move and breathe. Let us make the accord. I take sanctuary in the heart of being, accepting all of my delusions in thought, word, or deed, born of ignorance, hatred, and greed. Let us give thanks. I give thanks for all beings, awakening to the interbeing of all nature. May my heart be open and my mind clear. May all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and may all come to know that peace which is beyond all understanding. Since it is the practice of enlightenment, that practice has no beginning. And since it is enlightenment within the practice, that realization has no end. So I wanted to talk briefly this evening about something that I struggle with, but have been working on, and I imagine that I'm not alone in this, and that many of you have to deal with this, and that is, feeling like we don't have enough time, right? And the struggles that arise from that. I often feel like I need to be in two places at once. The place where I am, and then the place where I want to be, or the place where I need to go later. Maybe that I don't want to go, right? So my mind is kind of split, and that divided mind can be tough to deal with, because there's a strong sense of not being present and not being truly where we are, being split into several different places or several different times, and that's stressful. And that stress is dukkha, that sense of unease. That we're in the business of diminishing, of decreasing. And the problem is that we usually have a lot to do, right? and we have a lot on our minds. I know for me at work, I keep lots of to-do lists. I keep scrap paper around that I jot tasks on, so I don't forget them. And then I'm hopping from meeting to meeting and call to call, task to task, and those tasks add up. And then I spend time in meetings trying to multitask and get things done, or thinking like, God, I wish this meeting was over so that I could focus, right? And when I'm chatting with people and I have a lot on my mind, I'm not really present. I'm focused on all the work that I need to do, or just focused. If they bring an issue to me, I'm just focused on fixing their issue and sending them on their way. I always joke with people, I'm a fixer, right? So if you come to me with an issue, I'm going to give you advice and say, try this, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, but the whole difference of teaching someone to fish versus giving them a fish. Oftentimes when we work with people and allow them to come up with options, that's a kind of a better way to help people, because now they have ownership of that. They know how to fish. They know how to fix that issue. But I don't always take time for that. Just give and go, right? It's too much to do. And I over the last 2 years, due to COVID, most of my work has been done from home. And I know a lot of you, spent at least some time working remotely if you were able. And I never really liked this before, but I've come to enjoy that ability to focus. It has sometimes given me time to just sort of be heads down and get things done. But I've tried to go back into the office more and more, to see peers. It's a nice change of pace. I get to see people who I haven't seen very often. But boy, it can be tough to get work done sometimes when you're in an office with a lot of other people. I'll pass someone in the hall and we'll chat, or I'll be sitting at my desk and someone will come by and we'll kind of talk and things like that. And I feel bad because I'll know in the back of my head, like, I have to go to a meeting soon, and I'll kind of look at my watch, or like, I have work I need to get done, there's a deadline, and you feel this tightening up and this angst, right? Because there's this stress or the guilt, when you're chatting with someone, you'd love to talk to them, but you have to go and you have to be somewhere else, do something else. Dukkha, right? The feeling of unease, the tension that we feel. And when we experience these, emotions and sensations of always wishing we were somewhere else, if we don't investigate those, they can turn into habits and become very oppressive in their frequency. And I didn't mention all of that to complain, or to highlight like, oh, how busy I am. But I call it out because, like I said, I suspect that I'm not alone. That a lot of us feel, whether it's at work or at home, because of coworkers or family, we oftentimes feel that stress and that tension of feeling like we wish we could be in more places, more than one place at once, or feeling like we're always in two places at once mentally, right? And splicing our time between, what we're doing now and what's next, or dwelling on something that happened in the past. And so I wanted to share a practice that I've found helpful, when in a meeting or chatting with someone and checking the time, or even being stuck in traffic. I found this to be really useful. But anytime I'm feeling like I need to be somewhere else, I think to myself, and I say this to myself, this is the most important place to be. Or the person who I'm talking to. This is the most important person in the entire universe. And I tell myself that. And when I reflect on that, I notice a real physical sensation as a result of that very mental thought and consideration. Loosening up of muscles that I didn't even know that I was tensing, right? And so I encourage you to try this. When you find yourself split between two places, or split between now and another time, here versus there, now versus later, tell yourself, this is the most important place to be. This person is the most important person in the universe. And you'll feel that lessening of tension in the body. And probably more clarity of mind, because it's not being yanked in different directions. And the reason for that is because you're being present. You're not trying to tear yourself into those pieces of here and there and now and later. And this isn't a lie that we're telling ourselves. We're not lying to ourselves like, oh yeah, this person's the most important person, or this place is the most important place. It's not a lie that we're telling ourselves. We're not tricking ourselves into being content. The fact of the matter is, this is simply an acknowledgement of a truth that we're always resisting. I am only here right now. There's no place in the world more important than me, for instance, being here, giving this Dharma talk. No important person in the world more important to me than you. That's a truth. That when I'm trying to be everywhere at once and thinking like, I wish I could be here, or I should be doing this instead, that's the lie. That's why I'm stressed. Because I'm denying where I am and what I'm doing. And if we can give ourselves completely to the things that we're doing and the people who we're with, we realize that we're accepting the present. And we suffer less. If we insist on being somewhere we're not mentally, doing something, else, or worrying about talking to someone because we don't have time right now, that creates suffering. Another thought pattern that I came across a few years ago that I wanted to quickly mention was I encountered it in the first chapter of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Miracle of Mindfulness. And in that first chapter, he calls out a man who he knew, who had recently had a second child with his wife, and asked how he was doing. And the man said, it's good. Splitting time, with my wife to check on the newborn, wake up middle of the night, things like that. And still making time for his first child, because this was his second child, working, finding time for hobbies, for himself, things like that. And he said that he used to look at all those activities almost as, individual pieces of time, or like pieces of a puzzle that kind of fit together. I have this time for myself over here, this time for my children, this time for work, this time for other things. But he said when he started to think about all time was his, it changed his perspective, because he felt less inclined to always feel like he should be somewhere else, because the place where he should be was where he was. It was all his time. And you'll notice that both of these considerations, reflecting on the fact that where you are is the most important place because you're there, you're present there. The person you're speaking with is the most important person. And that all time, don't think about your time as like, I should be doing this, and this isn't my time because I'm spending it with someone else or doing what someone else asked me to do, but that all time is your time. These are all reflections of the mind, right? The solution here isn't necessarily, doing a better job of managing your calendar, or making better to-do lists, longer to-do lists, or saying no to people more often. Because while those, physical or sometimes social changes may sometimes be necessary, um, no amount of change to your schedule or workload or the number of people you encounter is going to keep you from needing to manage your thoughts. So we'll find a way to think should be somewhere else, right? If there's one thing to do today, guarantee it's possible for that thought to arise like, it could be doing something else, should be somewhere else, right? Or we spent the whole day thinking about that one thing we have to do. And so the whole morning is spent, in a way, doing that one thing. And we split ourselves. Because even though the world happens all around us and outside of our mind, our experience of the world is entirely through our mind. And our ability to live well on a daily basis is enhanced by us becoming more aware of our thoughts and managing our thought patterns and replacing, unskillful patterns with skillful ones. And on the off chance that we do need to make some changes to our environment or, how we spend our time and things like that, people, places, routines, doing so with a clear mind is much more useful and much more beneficial than making those changes when we're stressed or when we're angry. Right? It's like the Snickers commercial. Like, you're not yourself when you're angry. Don't make those decisions when you're, really struggling with that sense of feeling split. So always be working on your mind. Again, it's why we call it a practice, because we're always working to improve these things, to understand our thoughts, to investigate expired thought patterns, right? Patterns that may have, that may have served us well in different circumstances, but no longer apply, right? The sell-by date has passed, so to speak. And replacing them with new, more useful thought patterns and habits. In the same way that we update software on a computer, right? The hardware, our physical body may stay the same, but we can change the way that we operate. And that change, that improvement, that reflection, and that work, that's our practice. And so I hope you found this helpful. The moment we receive true and trusting, solid and clear like a diamond, infinite light and life embrace and protect us, liberating us completely. Let us take the 4 immeasurable vows. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to liberate them. Delusions are endless. I vow to end them. The ways of compassion and wisdom are boundless. I vow to embody them. The way is unattainable. I vow to attain it. Let us take the precepts for the community of the vow. I allow my true self to manifest in all aspects of life. I take complete responsibility for my own life and all of my actions. I affirm my personal being and acknowledge it as a path to awakening and freedom. I embrace all aspects of my personal being, including my shadow, so that they may be transformed. I affirm an attitude of openness to my true self, even in the midst of suffering. So as always, I would like to set some time for us to chant and for you to light incense. If you have a home altar, a home centering space, as we chant the Nembutsu, I'd invite you to light that incense and chant along with us. The Nembutsu, Namu, Amida, Butsu. And we'll chant that a few times. After we are finished chanting, I will ring a bell and we will spend some time in quiet meditation and reflection. And then we'll close. Let us recite the Bodhisattva's Gatha. We dedicate this practice to the welfare of all beings throughout space and time. May it always be so. So, as always, it was great to spend this time with you. And I hope that you found this practice and these words beneficial. If you would like to learn more about the Dragonfly Sangha in our community, you can learn about us at the dragonflysangha.com or just dragonflysangha.com or asksensei-tony.com. And as always, we have a Monday night service that meets live in person in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. You can find more about that service as well as directions at dragonflysangha.com. But same time, 6:30 on Monday evenings. So if you would like to learn more about us or chat with someone, please reach out, get in touch with us. But as always, thank you, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.